You know that sinking feeling when you're with someone, a partner, a parent, a friend, and suddenly it hits you. They're there, but not really. You laugh, they half smile. You open up. They glance at their phone. You speak, and it lands like a feather in a hurricane, light, fragile, and instantly swept away. At first you rationalize it. They're busy. They've got stuff on. They're just not good at expressing themselves. But there's a difference between someone struggling to connect and someone simply not caring enough to. And deep down, you already know which one you're dealing with. The truth is this: people will gladly take your time, your energy, your body, your comfort, as long as it costs them nothing. They'll keep you nearby so long as you stay small, as long as you don't ask for more, as long as you don't ask to matter. And when you do, when you finally bring up that tiny voice inside you that says, "I don't feel seen," they ghost. They withdraw. They act confused, like they never implied anything more than this slow, cold drip of half-presence. It's emotional minimalism dressed up as maturity. It's avoidance dressed up as complexity. It's cowardice cloaked in charisma. Nietzsche told us, they muddy the waters to make them seem deep. That's what this is. The deliberate dulling of your intuition. The gaslit rejection of your own needs. The suggestion that you're the one asking for too much, so you contort, you downplay, you shrink your expectations until they're small enough to be met by someone giving you nothing. You try to earn what you should have been freely offered. They confuse your effort with affection. You start chasing silence, like it might someday speak. But let's stop pretending. Let's name what's really happening here. You are being used by someone who wants comfort without commitment, access without intimacy. And your slow internal decay is the trade-off they're willing to make because they're not the one paying the cost. This is not love. This is not respect. This is not connection. This is someone treating your presence like an option and your dignity like an inconvenience. You didn't choose this pattern. You were trained into it. Maybe not by overt abuse, maybe not by monstrous cruelty, but by 1,000 small lessons repeated so subtly that you barely noticed. You were trained to believe that love is something you earn. That presence must be proved worthy of. That if someone pulls away, it's your job to become more pleasing, more palatable, more patient. As a child, it looked like the silent parent who only warmed up when you excelled, a teacher who praised you just enough to keep you craving more, the friend who made affection conditional on your usefulness. You learnt that attention was a scarce reward, not a birthright. And so you became a strategist. You figured out how to twist your own needs into something quieter. You learnt to interpret neglect as a mystery, detachment as depth. When they ignored you, you called it space. When they invalidated you, you called it tough love. When they disappeared emotionally, you called it independence. But what if it's none of those things? What if you've just been conditioned to associate low-effort care with high-stakes value? That's what emotional deprivation does. It creates scarcity, and in scarcity, even crumbs feel like a feast. Worse still, we live in a culture that rewards restraint more than honesty. You're told to play it cool, to not be too much, to stop needing so damn much. Just enjoy the moment, don't overthink it, don't ruin it by asking for clarity. But here's the lie. You were never too much. They were just never enough. And you've been gaslit into believing that this imbalance is maturity, when really it's a form of emotional starvation masquerading as modern romance. There's also trauma in the mix, not just what happened to you, but what you internalized about yourself because of it. You learned that being ignored was normal, that emotional distance meant you were failing. So you doubled down. You worked harder. You became the fixer, the forgiver, the one who always understands. But understanding someone's wounds does not require you to lie down and bleed for them. Hear that again. Because here's the hard truth. No one taught you how to leave. They only taught you how to hold on. Even when what you were holding on to was already letting go of you. This pattern isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility now. Because every time you accept less than you need, you teach your nervous system that abandonment is home. You reinforce the belief that you're only lovable when you suffer quietly, and that has to stop. You are not made for scraps. You were not built for begging. You were not born to audition. At first, the cost is invisible. It shows up in small ways. You check your phone more than you'd like to admit. You replay old conversations like they're clues in a mystery. You second-guess your tone, your timing, your worth. And then it gets worse. Your sleep fractures. Your appetite changes. Your chest tightens when a message goes unanswered, but you tell yourself it's fine, you're just being silly. You're not. You're being trained. Again. Because every time you ignore what your body is telling you, you reinforce the belief that your needs don't matter. That you don't matter. And this drip feed of neglect becomes your baseline. You adapt, not because it's healthy, but because it's familiar. Soon, it's not just the relationship that feels hollow. It's your life. You start postponing joy. You cancel plans. You shrink your world to fit their unpredictability. And when someone asks how you're doing, you say, busy, tired, fine. But you're not fine, you're depleted. And depletion is sneaky. It doesn't come with sirens, it comes with silence. You start to forget who you were before all this. You become a quieter version of yourself, a softer, more palatable silhouette. Your ambition flattens. Your humor dulls. Your creativity dries out like a stream under drought. You make fewer choices. You take fewer risks. You say, it's not the right time, when really it's just that your energy is being siphoned into a black hole of emotional ambiguity. And you're paying for it in installments. One anxious thought at a time. One sleepless night at a time. one missed opportunity at a time. This is the slow burn. It doesn't explode, it erodes. And what it erodes is your self-trust. You stop believing your own gut. You outsource your intuition to people who've already proven they can't hold it. You wait for signs from people who never even learned how to signal. And still you stay. Because leaving feels like admitting that the dream is dead. But the real death happened the day you decided that their indifference was easier to live with than your own loneliness. So ask yourself this: what's lonelier? Being alone? Or lying next to someone who treats your heart like background noise? He met her at a strange point in his life. Not rock bottom, not on top of the world, just numb. She had a lightness, a curiosity. She asked about things no one else noticed. His hands, his silences, the way he stared out of the window when he thought no one was watching. They talked for hours the first night. Not deep philosophy, not childhood wounds, but enough to feel seen. And after years of being the strong one, the solid one, the fixer, that felt like oxygen. She said things like, "I've never met someone like you. I feel safe with you." He took that as connection. Now he knows it was projection. In the beginning, he gave more, made the plans, sent the texts, paid attention, paid for everything. He didn't mind, not at first. It felt good to be needed, to finally have somewhere to put all this quiet love. But she never really leaned in. She'd show up late, distracted, scroll through her phone mid-conversation, talk about other men like it was nothing. And still, he tried. He told himself not to be dramatic, called it modern dating, called it a slow burn, even called it chemistry, because how else do you explain being sidelined by someone you want to build with? Weeks passed, then months. She was inconsistent but magnetic. She'd vanish, then reappear with a smile or a compliment, and every time something in him hoped. Once, he asked what they were. She said, "You knew I wasn't ready for anything serious." Like that was a contract he'd agreed to without reading. Still, he stayed. He told himself stories that she'd been hurt, that she just needed time, that if he proved he was safe, she'd finally choose him. He made excuses for the unread messages, the changed plans, the way she seemed present only when she needed something. And all the while, a quiet kind of erosion began. He stopped talking about his dreams. She changed the subject. He stopped dressing sharp. She never noticed anyway. He stopped reaching out first, but she didn't notice at all. And when friends joked, "She's keeping you on the bench," he laughed too loud because it hurt too much to admit they were right. Then came the night of her party. She said, "You should come." He said, "I'd love to." She never sent the address. And as he sat on his couch, phone face up, waiting for a message that never came, something inside him stopped. Not rage, not grief, just stillness. The kind of stillness that settles in when a man finally stops mistaking being used for being needed. His stomach didn't twist, his hands didn't shake, just that heavy stillness, the kind that settles when a man realizes he's been playing a rigged game. That night, he didn't text. He didn't scroll her feed. He didn't drink or rant. He just cleaned, deleted the thread, unfollowed the future he'd imagined, not out of anger, but because he finally remembered he'd survived worse. Sometimes the loudest declaration of worth is not the one where you fight to be chosen, it's the one where you walk away. Sometimes the loudest rebellion is the one where you stop proving you deserve to be heard. It wasn't a scream, not a snap, just stillness. The kind of stillness that comes when the body finally gets tired of being lied to. No tears, but deleted threads, untagged photos, unfollowed as friends. Not out of anger, but because sometimes the loudest love story is the one where you walk away. Nietzsche once wrote, "The true man wants two things, danger and play. Therefore he wants woman as the most dangerous plaything." It sounds savage. It is savage, but it's not about gender. It's about projection, possession, and power. To Nietzsche, much of human behavior can be traced back to the will to power, not to the pursuit of pleasure, not to the avoidance of pain, but the raw, often unconscious need to assert control, especially in relationships. And when someone pretends not to care, that's not emotional neutrality. It's a strategy. Emotional detachment becomes a power play. It looks like being unavailable, so you chase, acting indifferent, so you perform, withholding praise, so you prove, dodging accountability, so you question yourself. These aren't random traits, they're survival mechanisms, not from danger, from intimacy. Because true intimacy requires surrender, not submission, but vulnerability. And for someone addicted to control, that feels unbearable. Nietzsche didn't believe most people could handle the truth of who they were, so they built masks. They became the herd, and when faced with someone emotionally present, someone who wants to be seen and to see, they retreat. But there's another layer: psychological splitting. When people are raised in environments where love was conditional, inconsistent, or dangerous, they learn to compartmentalize. They split the world into two: powerful versus powerless, safe versus unsafe, dominant versus discarded. If they love you, they feel weak. If they need you, they feel exposed. So instead, they numb. They ghost. They mock connection as neediness when really they're terrified of it. That's not your failure. It's their unexamined fear. Nietzsche called this resentment, a kind of inverted morality where what we can't have, we devalue. They can't hold space for love, so they sneer at it. They can't offer consistency, so they call your needs too much. And if you're not careful, you'll internalize their wounds as your shortcomings, Here's the flip. Understanding this model doesn't mean you rescue them. It means you release yourself. You're not here to be someone's soft place to land while they sharpen their knives. You're not a rehabilitation center for people addicted to control. You are someone whose very presence threatens the illusion they've built because you offer what they secretly crave but cannot tolerate. Truth. Not the glossy, filtered kind. The kind that says, "I'm not afraid to be known. Are you?" And when the answer is no, you walk. Not because you're bitter, but because you finally understand the game and you've stopped playing it. But here's the secret no one tells you. When you stop playing their game, you don't just lose the chaos, you gain your center. At first, that center might feel empty, quiet, strange, like you've walked off a stage and no one's clapping. But stay there. Let the silence settle. Because that's not emptiness, that's unclaimed space. Space where your real self starts speaking again. Not the self that learned to perform, not the self that begged to be chosen. The one who never needed an audience. You'll begin to notice you don't crave their attention. You don't shrink from their withdrawal. You don't need to prove anything. Not because you've hardened, but because you've healed. You don't need to be the strong one, the understanding one, the fixer, the forgiver, the fortress. You just need to be free. So next time someone treats your openness like a weakness, your silence won't mean confusion, it will mean clarity. You see it now. You see them. And more importantly, you see you. Clearly, powerfully, finally. There will be a morning when you wake up and your first thought isn't about them. You won't wonder if they'll call. You won't rehearse how to win them back. You won't scroll through old messages looking for some hidden clue that maybe, just maybe, they cared. Because you'll realize that question no longer matters. What matters now is how you care for yourself. You'll pour your coffee slowly. You'll wear the coat that makes you feel unstoppable. You'll breathe deeper because your lungs are no longer filled with the smoke of confusion. You won't chase closure. You'll create it. You'll remember how it felt to second-guess your worth based on someone else's inability to recognize it, and you'll never go back. Not out of bitterness, but because you've changed. You've stopped over-functioning for underinvested people. You've stopped contorting yourself into a shape that fits their comfort but breaks your spirit. You've stopped pretending you're not hurt when you are. And most of all, you've stopped apologizing for needing more. Not because you're needy, but because you've outgrown the lie that love should be earned through suffering. Now your boundaries speak for you. Your silence holds weight. And your standards are no longer up for negotiation. Because you're not trying to be palatable. You're trying to be free. And freedom, that's the ability to walk away when your soul knows you're being diminished. You'll still love, but you'll love with your eyes open. You'll still hope, but not at the cost of self-respect. And when someone worthy comes along, you'll know the difference not because they're perfect, but because you're no longer starving. You'll see clearly. You'll choose wisely. You'll trust yourself fully, finally. And that version of you, you're not waiting for validation. You are the validation. And that version of you doesn't need a mirror. You already know who you are. So say it with me, and say it like you mean it. I choose my dignity over their confusion. I choose my presence over their absence. I choose to stop proving and start becoming. You've already begun, and I'll see you on the next one.